Christina. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. It says streaming to LinkedIn is not possible. Is it working? How strange. I reset it and it's not streaming to LinkedIn again.
Hmm.
Oh well, all right. Let me see. We try to add it here. Hmm. It's weird. Yeah, it says that it's connected, but it's not. All right, let's just keep going.
Okay,
I'll just have to upload it to LinkedIn
good,
later. Hey, how's it going? Good morning.
good. I wanted to talk about something today that I was recently attending a Harvard leadership webinar, which is very
Uh-huh.
good. And one of the audience members posted that he wondered what was going on with young people, that young people on his team were quitting and that they were claiming that it was a mental health, they were claiming mental health issues. And I thought that was interesting. And, but also not the first time I've seen something like that happen.
Right.
And historically, I've known of another organization where one guy had so many employees, especially the women, quit and
Uh-huh.
file lawsuits. And in his mind, it was all about the fact that they were not up to the job, that it was their fault.
Oh,
And
we're all
I and so I wonder what some other bosses have come up with in terms of excuses for why their employees are all leaving the team.
mm,
And
mm.
so I'd like your thoughts about that because I think, well, the mental health issue goes straight into your bucket,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and the leadership issue goes straight into my bucket. So it's
Yeah.
a good combo. But anyway, I thought it was interesting, and I really did think we need to pass out some mirrors.
Yeah.
Pick up your mirror here.
That's funny, because when I talk about emotional intelligence, I always say looking in the mirror is the first step, self-awareness. Self-awareness is the first step of it because you can't understand the emotions of other people or the people around you if you don't understand your own emotions first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We've seen that before, though. We've seen that with things, not even at companies, but remember it was in the Olympics. We saw athletes even where they were like the mental health is too much, the
Oh,
stress,
well, yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's so much stress. It's a different kind of stress. It's not. We're talking about hostile work environments, but it's a different kind of stress. I
Yeah.
feel like I hear static. Do you hear static?
I do. And I heard it for a while and then it abruptly went away and now it's back.
It's back again. It is me, I think. Am I using the wrong microphone? I think I am. I think you stay here and I'm just going to come back in.
Okay.
Do that. It's probably going to stop actually
It
the
probably will
recording.
cut the
Yeah,
whole
yeah,
thing
yeah.
off. That's what
Yeah,
happened last
probably
time.
will. That's okay though. I'd rather have that than have the static. So I'm
Okay.
just gonna leave. Okay.
We'll start over.
Oh, I have the option.
Well, I'm still here. And so while we're waiting for Christina to come back, I want to point out some of the leadership aspects of what I just talked about. And that is if you're a leader and a lot of people are leaving your team, remember the adage people leave managers, not companies. And so I, I tried to fill in while you were out,
That's
Christina,
awesome.
but I just
That's
want
good.
to fill in with people leave managers, not
Oh
companies.
yeah, we talk about
So
that all the time.
if people are
Yeah.
leaving your team, look in the mirror. What's
Look
going
in the
on?
mirror.
Get some advice from a mentor who will be honest with you and tell you what you might want to change to make that environment less hostile or
Or
more
even
welcome.
sometimes the environment you can't change. I worked with somebody who had been in that environment for so long and they had been taking it on. They'd been taking on everybody else's dysfunction. And because they were friends with the CEO and the CEO would dump on them, and then they'd be like, "You're the only person who can save this team. We got to get this product out," you know? And I'm like, "Wait a minute. Why are you, the team lead, supposed to save the company? Do you have a degree in business management? Are you the owner? Are you the CEO?" And yet here was this person, they were taking it all in a hostile work environment, and they came to me going, "Christina, I'm a problem." And in fact, for them, we did 3 coaching sessions and we had to talk about how the work environment was the problem. And they moved. In fact, they changed companies. They did drop that leader because the leader wasn't going to change after everything they had tried. They'd been there for like 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so stressed out, it was affecting all of their relationships, their marriage, and they couldn't talk about anything else. They were just completely consumed by the toxicity of the environment and how they could improve and do better. And they were stressed. Oh, I might lose my job unless I deliver this product. And I'm like, have they sold it? Like, why is it? You're not the sales team. You're not the marketing team. All of this is not on your shoulders. And so we did a few sessions, and they slowly kind of shifted. They got some coping skills. They realized, oh, this isn't my responsibility. They got pri- uh, they got promoted at a different job, and then promoted again at a different company, and now they've got their dream job. They're super happy. They love it. So
That's
in that
wonderful.
case, it was three
Yeah.
sessions, because they needed a mentor.
Yeah.
That was it. But some people, it's different. I've had younger, I mentor young students or people who are in transition oftentimes from into tech. And so with young people, sometimes they'll take things on, but also sometimes they just don't have the coping skills yet. So they give up early.
Yeah. That's the resilience that they
That's right.
haven't yet developed. Yeah.
Yeah. So mentors help, getting a coach helps, getting a therapist help. And remember, we talk about this before too. If you're picking mentors, it's important to have a technical mentor, but it's important to have a career mentor, the one who will kind of, you can talk about office politics and, how to maybe handle delicate situations when you need to
Mm-hmm.
deal with conflict. I think that the mental health piece, though, when we're thinking about mental health in the workplace, people will leave for mental health reasons, and it's this obscure kind of thing. I don't think they get into it usually, so we never really hear the details of what that looks like. When they
Right. And you
leave
don't
for,
have to because of the protections of the laws.
right,
You
right.
don't have to
And
get
so,
into it.
right. And so people don't, so then other people looking out, they go, oh, mental health reasons. Well, you just couldn't handle it. You just couldn't
Yeah.
handle it. Right. And I
Yeah.
think that creates this stigma.
Right. And in the case of the webinar I was at last week, uh, the boss thought that young people must be different in some way. They had different priorities. Yeah, of course they have different priorities. And they had mental health issues, and that was a new thing to him. Um,
Right. Because back in the day, like, my uncles, my grandparent, they didn't have mental health issues. It was like, buck up,
right,
like, get it together. What's wrong with you? So what?
right.
Everybody hates their job. Get to work. Your boss is your boss. Who
Yeah,
cares? And
right.
it was that kind of mentality, you know. And
Hmm.
now young people will say things like, "No, I need a mental health day. Oh, I'm overwhelmed. I'm this. I need to take a break." And
the bosses just don't understand that. Or, and it's not always young people. There are other people who are in
Yeah,
touch with their
yeah.
emotions. But I'm
But
just saying,
in this
in
case,
this
it
case,
was,
yeah.
and yeah, and I find that so interesting that the boss hadn't figured out that maybe he was the problem. Just hadn't figured that out. And he was looking to blame others. And in the case of the manager whose team members routinely left, especially
Mm-hmm.
women, and filing lawsuits, he didn't think it was his
No.
behavior that was causing the problem. He
Yeah.
thought that they weren't up to the job. And that, uh, in fact, it sort of reaffirmed his view that women weren't
Right.
competent electrical engineers.
Right.
Well, hello, maybe that's not the issue. Maybe it's that you're not a competent boss. So,
When I see people who, I call that how we do one thing is how we do anything. And we end up getting these, 45-year-old, 50-year-old children. They're, 10 years old, really, and they're leading teams. Inside, they're 10 and they're
yeah,
doubling down. It's not me. It's not me. It's like my
it's
preteens.
you,
They
it's
they
you.
double down.
Right.
No, I'm not. You're
All
late.
your
No, I'm
fault.
not. I'm like holding up the clock. I'm like, it literally says you're 15 minutes late. No, I'm not. My kids, they'll look right at me. It's like maybe if I just deny it, double. I'm like, I got receipts here, dude. I don't know, and they double down. No, it's everybody else. It's everybody else. But I have to say, Leslie, I was like that when I was younger too.
Mm.
Okay, when I was younger, that's what got me on the path to emotional intelligence. Is I tell the story about how I had like 14 jobs in
Oh,
11
right.
years or something. And eventually I had to turn around and just be like, there's a common denominator here. Maybe I should have a little less chaos in my life and work on some emotional intelligence, some skills. Let me ask some
Mm-hmm.
people who have the skills to
Mm-hmm.
teach me those skills.
Yeah. So, what were the lessons that taught you those skills?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that I did before I was talking about emotional intelligence, before I knew what that was, it was integrity. Integrity is what we do when no one's watching.
Yes.
That's what it was for me. I decided I was going to show up when I was going to show up, where I was going to show up at that time. Because at that time, I was waiting tables. I was a server in Ann Arbor. I didn't have a car. I didn't have a phone. And I was looking to do like healthier things instead of going out and drinking on the weekends. So I was doing Sunday brunch. But since I didn't have a phone, I didn't have a car, I would just tell people, look, this is where I'm going to be, and that's how it is. And I recognized that a lot of people flake. And I
Mm.
recognized, and I said, you know what? Okay, a lot of people my age, they say they're going to do something, and then they don't, and they never bring it up again, and it never gets addressed, and it's like swept under the rug. And I was like, I'm going to shift that in the people around in my life, and I want to shift that in me. So I
Mm-hmm.
decided integrity was showing up when
Mm-hmm.
and where, and I started with that brunch. And I watched how, different people would say things, they're going to show up, they're not going to show up. And then I started later with my bosses where they would say, "Oh yeah, we'll do this, we'll do that." And I'd watch them. "Oh, but they didn't." But they're acting like they did, but nobody held them accountable, and we're all just going to sweep it under the rug. It
Yeah.
was those kinds of things I started noticing around me and the people around me and in myself. And when I started shifting those, that was when integrity shifted for me. It was like integrity. And if I wanted to do the wrong thing, or if I wanted to cancel or flake at the last minute on my friend for going out or a brunch or something, I would be like, oh, integrity is what we do and no one's watching. I didn't call them. I didn't tell them. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do what I say I'm doing. And that's how it started with me. Just integrity. The second one, what was the second thing? The second thing was interesting. The second thing was I was apologizing a lot. And people would say,
Mm.
"You apologize too much. Why are you always apologizing? It's not your fault." Right? So when I was young, I started, it's my fault. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And they said, actually, Christina, maybe just think about what you're apologizing for. And I started to make my apologies matter more. It was almost like that in a follow up to the integrity piece.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so apologies were a thing. Apologizing to children, if I may, because people, I think they don't apologize to kids a lot either, because they think, oh, they're kids, they'll get over. Oh, I said that thing, and it didn't matter. Whatever. They're right. People
Yeah.
don't apologize, and I certainly didn't when I was younger. So integrity and apologizing were the things that helped me gain like more of a sense of myself and what I was all about and what I was going to
Mm-hmm.
stand for and what I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped to drive my communication, and my relationships got more solid. They were more trustworthy. People could depend on me. I would show up. I
Mm-hmm.
would do what I was going to say I was going to, and I got a reputation for that. I started to get a reputation wherever I went for being the person who does what she says she's going to do. I deliver.
Mm-hmm.
And that was me being dependable, and people could depend on that relationship.
You know, that's one of the reasons I like working with you.
Oh,
I can
thanks.
count on you. You're going to show up.
Thanks.
It's
Thanks.
not, you're
Thanks.
not one of the people that I have to remind 10 minutes before
Oh, right.
and 5 minutes before.
Right. I get upset. Like I get when people, they do that for appointments and stuff. Like they'll send me reminders. I'm like, why with the reminders constantly? And I guess it's because they have
It's
clients that,
other people. Yeah.
and then they complain and they don't show up to their appointment. I guess they don't want to pay or things like. I. It's really foreign to me. I don't really live my life that way.
Yeah,
Um,
I know. And
yeah. Yeah.
it's it's shocking to me. It's like being stood up for a date,
Right.
and
Yeah.
uh, you're wasting
Yeah.
my time,
Yeah.
and I spent all this time waiting for you, and now
Yeah.
you're not here. What?
I've had friends who have experienced that, and they're texting me from the spot. They're like, "Well, I guess they stood me up." I'm like, "How is this possible? What? You agreed on a time to meet?" I don't know.
Yeah, it is
Yeah. Yeah.
strange.
That is strange. Boundaries, though, were the next thing for me. Like when, because I would say yes all the time to things, or I wanted to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started to understand what I was about and what I was going to stand for, and what was integrous, then it was boundaries. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I could communicate those boundaries, it really built up my sense of confidence and my sense of self. Then
Yeah.
I started to be able to communicate what's going to work for me, what isn't. No, I can't work on Sunday nights. No, I can't work on Monday mornings. Um, I can do this, but I can't do that. There's
Right.
probably somebody more appropriate to ask. I can't complete this task well. And I started to
Mm-hmm.
communicate those things. And then as a result, I wasn't taking all that stress in and internalizing it because I overcommitted, or because I bit off more than I could chew, or, I was feeling stressed about performing or delivering something over the weekend. So then I never got the rest. So then I'd show up on Monday even more stressed. And that stuff starts to snowball. And
Yeah. I think that's a really important point, especially for people who are nice
mm-hmm.
and say yes
Yeah.
and will get excited about what somebody else wants them to work on, and so they'll say, "Oh, I can do that."
Uh-huh.
And then all of a sudden, and nobody talks about how they're going to get rewarded or compensated for doing that,
Yeah.
especially if it's in a volunteer situation or
Yeah.
a mentoring situation where the person is the mentor but taking on way more
Sure.
than they need to.
Right.
So what are I mean, boundaries? Any other advice to people who take on so much?
Yeah. Whenever people take on so much like that, for me, it was always, I want people to like me. So if you can
Hmm.
think about what those reasons are, I wanted people to
Yeah.
like me. A lot of times it's the culture in the work, Remember that hostile work environment person I
Yeah,
was talking? That was their culture. Everybody, it was expected to stay late. Everybody was
yeah,
expected to work on the weekends.
yes.
You
I've been
have
there.
to have a strong enough sense of yourself to know this isn't healthy. There's
Yeah,
a certain amount that we can tolerate of stress, and then we have coping skills for, and maybe we need to go to a therapist or go for a run or work out or bake some bread. I really like to get into sourdough and just beat on the dough. Right, that helps put that energy in there. Do some push-ups sometimes, like,
here,
you know,
here's my,
work it out.
here's my thing. I like to make pies, so I roll out the pie
Oh,
dough, put
yeah.
it, especially for a lemon meringue pie where you have a baked pie
Oh,
dough
right.
before, so you have to prick it with a fork in
Yes.
order to burst all the bubbles so it doesn't
Right.
make bubbles in the pie dough. Get that fork. My pie
I'm gonna
dough
make
had
a
a
pie.
lot of holes in it.
Make a pie. Walk
Never
into
bubble,
work.
never
Here,
bubble.
I made a pie for you, boss. And it's all just.
No, no, we ate the pie. It was
Yeah.
delicious. That helped too.
That's right. Yeah, that helps too. Exactly. Exactly. So, having those things, it's just a delicate balance though, especially if your needs aren't met, if your basic needs aren't met. And,
Mhm.
a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck and you have to stay there. It's really hard then to have the mental energy. If it's gone on that deep that you're so depressed about your work, it's hard to have the mental energy on top of it to search for a job, which searching for a new job is a full-time
It
job,
is a big job.
you
Yeah.
know. And if you've
Yeah.
got kids, that's another it's it's a lot. So I tell people if it is that bad and you're so stressed that you're like losing your mind and you're losing your head, some good bit of advice that one of my best friends gave to me was to focus on something beautiful. When you get in that moment, you're right at the precipice of a panic attack. It's not quite there, but you can sense it's happening. It's to, just bring some self awareness to this exact moment and
Mhm.
focus on something beautiful. So, that right there, if you can really embody it and feel the beauty of something and really vibe, you know, um, a kid, a flower, the beautiful sunshine, something that you can just kind of take a little sip of fresh air, come up
Mhm.
out of the muck.
Yeah.
That can be helpful in centering you in those moments and getting through your day. Maybe you need to take 10, 20 little sips throughout your day if you're in a really tough work environment. And if
Yeah.
it's more than that, then you really need to work on a new job, a therapist, a counselor, talking to a friend to help process those things. Even journaling. Sometimes I would get into my journal and it would just be and turn the page and turn the page, and I'm just expressing it because anger unexpressed turns to depression. If we're in
Yes.
that trapped environment and we have a hostile work environment and the boss thinks it's everybody else's fault and there's no accountability and your mental health is going down, we have to have some way to express the emotions because if they're not, we turn them inward and then that turns into depression and it exacerbates those mental health issues. And that's where we see people, leaving their work because of
Yeah.
hostile work environments like that. Yeah.
Right.
It's not even safe for them emotionally.
Yeah. And whose fault is that?
Right.
Not theirs.
Well,
Well, partly
exactly.
theirs for staying, but
But sometimes people have to stay,
I
and
know.
that's the situation they're in. But those bosses, those leaders who are sitting around going, "Oh, I just can't get anybody to work." I'm like, "You mean you can't get anybody to scrub toilets for $2.50 an hour?" Is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah.
Um, that's a you problem. That's not a them
Right.
problem.
And you mentioned journaling, and I want to say that, when people are journaling, if you say, "Oh, I'm so mad about this,"
Yeah,
and then you ask yourself, "Why?" Blah blah, and you could go down a level, and then you ask yourself, "Well, why does that make me mad?"
yeah,
And you keep going down, go down a few levels, and I think it's really helpful. Just kept going
I
down,
see
down, down.
three Ys. If you do three Ys, I mean, sometimes I'm really stubborn because I like to trick myself. Like, no, I'm not telling you. Sometimes I need 4 or 5 Ys levels. But um, if you can get down to 3 levels, it can give you some good information about
Yes.
why you're really upset. And sometimes you maybe just hadn't considered it before. But if you reflect, remember we talked about emotional intelligence. The first part is looking in the mirror.
Right.
So, having a self-examined life is important to maybe understand. Maybe you're not in the right place, and maybe it's not your fault.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that's a great message to leave our
Yeah.
viewers with. Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of your mental health out there, everybody.
Yeah.
And take some measures if you need to get out of a hostile work environment. And if in the meantime you can't, just take some sips of beauty throughout your day, journal, talk to a friend. What happens is when we start moving and shifting the energy, even if it's just a little bit by journaling, a little bit by talking to a friend, a little bit by therapy, all of these things add up. Sometimes it's wild,
Hmm.
Leslie, like you would see, sometimes the boss moves on.
Yeah. You can
Magically,
outlast them.
sometimes you can outlast them and they move on. Sometimes they move away.
Hmm.
Sometimes when you do these little things, it does shift.
Yeah.
You just don't know how it's going to shift.
Yeah. And if you're the boss and all your employees are leaving you, well, then maybe you're a good candidate to sign up for our second Friday of the month
Yes.
leadership practicum, where
Yeah.
you can practice some leadership skills that will improve that problem. And it's only $27.
Yep.
Just go to luckyandleslie.com and sign up.
Yep. It's noon the second Friday of every month, noon Central, and 10 a.m. Pacific, the second
Yeah,
Friday of every month for a leadership practicum. Excellent. And it's good for leaders and it's good for employees too.
that's true. That's right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, you have an amazing day, Leslie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You too. Enjoy whatever fall weather you get.
Oh, I know. Yeah, thank you. It just turned to fall. It was like windy, 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 and then done, just like that. It switches.
Boom.
There's no season change. There's no transition whatsoever. It's just wind and then boom, like Mary
Right.
Poppins. The wind
Yeah.
comes and she's just there. Oh, it's funny. It's funny. Awesome. Well, enjoy your
Okay.
day.
Well, I'll see you next Wednesday
Sounds good.
and look forward to chatting. Talk later. Bye bye.